What's going on, boxing fans? It's Julian Williams with The Distance. I'm here to give you part two of my number one middleweights for my top five for this week. And part two is another boxer, actually. So you could kind of say this is kind of a Super Six type thing. But anyway, my part two, who is tied with my number one, is Sugar Ray Robinson. Of course, you have to have Sugar Ray Robinson on top of this list, as well as Marvin Hagler. Because Sugar Ray Robinson won the title about 5 times. He won about 5 times, and he took on some Hall of Famers. Actually, he took on Randy Turpin, Carmen Basilio, who's another great champion, Gene Fulmer, and Joey Giardello, another quality opponent at that time. Bobo Olsen, Carl Olsen, fighters like these guys, and all these guys ended up being future Hall of Famers. So you have to put Sugar Ray Robinson on this list as well on top. Immortality plays a key theme in the annals of history, and Sugar Ray Robinson was was probably the most immoral boxer of all time. Even though he came up short in some matchups, and even though he has 19 losses, he's still pound for pound one of the best fighters of all time. You know, one thing that stood out to me with Sugar Ray Robinson was the fact that before his time, he did everything very well. He had good defense, good offense. He moved around the ring perfectly. He was. If you want to look at the perfect fighter, then you have to look at videos of Sugar Ray Robinson. At middleweight, something that stands out to me is his matchup against Gene Fulmer. I believe it was the second matchup. And against Gene Fulmer, it was that I mentioned in another video about Gene Fulmer was the left hook that put Fulmer to sleep. And Fulmer, it was on my top 5 chin list. So, he knocked out Gene Fulmer and with a left hook, and is perhaps possibly one of the greatest. They say the greatest left hook ever thrown in boxing. And other than that, Sugar Ray Robinson, the who they call the pound for pound best boxer to ever lace up a pair of gloves. He's done so much for the sport, and he retired as the middleweight champion. A lot of people think he should have just stayed retired, but I think it was possibly money issues. Either it was money issues or just loving the sport was the reason he came back. But he won the title about 5 times, and then towards the end of his career, just like many boxers at that time, he was having money issues and he had to continue fighting. And he could have retired, in 1960 when he was about 39. He could have retired, but he didn't retire. He continued to fight, and sadly, his last fight was lost to Joey Archer in, I believe, like 64-65. And he had a long career, and this is 64. That 65. That's about 19 years after he won the welterweight championship. But you have to look at his accomplishments at middleweight. He fought a lot of great fighters. He had some tough opposition: Jake LaMotta, Carl Olsen, Joey Giardello, Paul Pender. People like that. Gene Fulmer. He had some tough opposition, and he defeated them all. But then again, he lost some as well. But at the same time, he was one of those fighters that fought everybody. So the fact that he fought everybody, every top contender at that time, you have to put Sugar Ray Robinson on top of that list, as well as Marvin Hagler. And that's because Sugar Ray Robinson is probably the greatest fighter of all time. And on top of that, his accomplishments are many. But at the same time, I don't want to say too much about Sugar Ray Robinson, because best believe we will see Sugar Ray Robinson again in the top 5 series. So anyway, that was my thoughts on Sugar Ray Robinson at middleweight. I believe he's perhaps probably the greatest middleweight of all time, alongside Marvin Hagler. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this top five. So anyway, thanks for watching. Peace.